Laoshi Lawrence McElroy here for Water Tiger School of Taijiquan. Back in front of the camera. So we mentioned, as we shot our last video, which was on February 23rd, it was a run of the Sitting 8 Pieces of Brocade, that we'd be a little off our schedule. This is the 4th week instead of the 3rd week. And we should be back on schedule now for every 3 weeks as we move forward and continue for at least a while the shuffle between Tai Chi and Qigong. Since the last was Qigong, Sitting 8 Pieces of Brocade, today will be a Tai Chi focus. And it will be a return to a theme that has been sort of a major part of the channel, and that's variety is the spice of Tai Chi. Variety of practice, variety of life, etc. And here's the t-shirt this week. You may, if you look closely, figure out why we couldn't shoot and upload a video last week. But anyway, the last time we wore this shirt, this is only the 2nd time since we launched this channel in March of 2020, was at the end of August 2020, August 23rd. It was when we were still doing Facebook Live sessions for some of our public classes that were suspended at the time. This was a Water Tiger for Sachem video that addressed one of our lottery slips from what we call our Tai Chi lottery, and it was minimal. So a little continuation of the theme there. So there's that. So I'll get into where our focus is. It's gonna be sort of about a pulse. But anyway, we're gonna start with a warm-up from Shibashi. Before you jump down my throat. Yes, I understand. Proper pronunciation is probably something closer to Shibashi or Shibashi. Different accents, different syllables. However, every time Shibashi has crossed my path over the years, usually at World Tai Chi Day, another facilitator would introduce people to Shibashi. That's the pronunciation they used. When we decided to add it to our lineage from a particular instructor, that's the way he pronounced it. And you'll probably find a plethora of videos online with Shibashi. I haven't looked at every video of Shibashi that's out there, but the ones that I have, everybody says Shibashi, not Shibashi. Shibashi. So anyway, so there you go. And it is referred to as Tai Chi Qigong. Water Tiger, for anybody who knows Water Tiger, you know that we've been doing Tai Chi Qigong since we first started doing things over 30 years ago. But it's an entirely different family of Tai Chi Qigong than the Shibashi sets are. So anyway, so there you go. That's going to be our warm-up. We're going to do one piece. For us, it's the 13th piece in the set. And for us, again, different people, different names of the exercises, different approaches to the movement of the exercises, breath patterns, all sorts of different things. Anyway, the name is, for us, Dove Spreads Its Wings. Here's a funny thing, right? The archetype of the dove, usually peace, which would be nice in these current days. But anyway, that's as the 13th exercise in the first set of Shibashi. That means it's the beginning of the 3rd section. Again, 18. For you mathematicians out there, 18, 6 and 6 and 6 make 18. So this is the beginning of the 3rd section, the 3rd 6. And it is followed by punching. And then the 15th piece goes back to our fine feathered friends, and it's a flying wild goose. So anyway, just a little Shibashi trivia for you there. And a little more, right? So most would agree, although pronunciations differ, approaches to the exercises differ, and that sort of thing. Most would agree that it was Professor Lin Hao Sheng, I believe, who created the Shibashi sets between probably about 1970 and 1990, if I remember the dates correctly. 1979, actually, I think, and 1990, so within about a 10-year period. And again, different sources online will have, there are 6 sets. No, there are 8 sets. Anyway, this is the first set. It's our version of the first set. The benefits of doing Shibashi, include, but are not limited to, something as general as just general health and well-being. Can help reduce stress, can help with blood pressure regulation, can serve as a breath therapy, can improve circulation and digestion. And the particular health benefits will include some of those for dove spreads its wings. Conditions related to the heart and lungs, the nervous system, the lungs, enforcing respiration, regulation, and improving circulation. Improves the flow of qi through the chest, so it opens the chest to the qi. It also just physically opens the chest and helps to relieve breathing issues. And aids in, again, as I said, with the general health benefits, digestion, and it strengthens the heart and the lungs. So let's just start with a little shake. Should have been shaking as I was going through those things, but that's the way the cookie crumbles. Working on coming up with some sort of bird pun there, but it just wasn't happening. I'm going to finish my mint as I shake. So, I'm in my shoulder width stance here. Obviously, I have the blue lines out, so whatever our focus is, balls. It's going to probably involve some stance work. Our basic vertical alignment, which I am now standing in, my shoulder width, where the drop of the shoulder is not the outside of the shoulder, not the top of the shoulder, right where that little decline is, right at the bone joints, should split the heel on that side in half. Same on this side. My feet ideally should be parallel. My right foot isn't quite. Now oops, there we go. Now it is, right? Nope, it went right back to where it was. Now they're parallel. That's weird. I usually feel that without having to look. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Sitting down in my lower body, knees are open, perineum anchored toward the earth. That puts the hips underneath the torso underneath the shoulders, chin from parallel, slight tuck down, putting the crown point of the head the Bach way, held, not lifted to the heavens. Perineum anchored toward the earth. That's our vertical alignment. Chest slightly sunk, back slightly rounded. Now as we move through this, we're going to sort of see how the chest remains sunk and the back remains rounded, even as we spread our wings, if you will. So I'm going to use my first foot, my first back foot as my right foot. It doesn't really move. I'm going to step out to around a 45. And by the way, if you go back through the archives, you're going to see at some point back for a while in the earlier days that I'd tape an X on my left shoulder in the area between the chest and the collarbone. One of my students in one of our remote programs during the earlier days of the pandemic asked for that so she'd know which side was my left side. I'm pointing this out because if you've noticed, if you can see it, like today's with the light color shirt, you can see the microphone is usually always on my right side. So I'm going to step out. I have a little bit longer stance here. I'm not working on being shoulder wide. I'm just stepping comfortably. So I'm actually pretty narrow here when it comes to stance work, which you'll see what the difference is when I face the camera when we get to our actual Tai Chi focus. And the movement in the lower body is simply shifting forward. Notice the back heel staying down. I'm not bringing that back heel up off the ground as I shift forward. But when I sit back, the ball of the front foot, in this case the left foot, comes up off the ground. I'm not leaning back when I go back. I shouldn't be leaning forward as I go forward. And it's an inhale back and an exhale forward. And an inhale back and an exhale forward. And an inhale back and an exhale forward. And that's the low body on one side. Let's just feel it on the other side. Again, step out some, shift forward. Now that back left hip's a little bit tight during our shooting here. Inhale forward, exhale back. I'm going to play with my right foot. There we go. Inhale forward, exhale back. And that's the basis of that leg pump, which of course gets the lungs and the heart working a little bit as we shift. And kind of like our usual version of Tai Chi Qigong the Water Tiger School does, I like to feel that, though this is a different Tai Chi Qigong, that the breath and the movement are still as one. The movement's generating the breath as much as the breath is generating the movement. Going back to that first side, the upper body, not too complicated. On that exhalation forward, notice palms are down, so the thumbs are coming in toward one another, and that's about the distance that they come apart, that they're apart on that extension. And then on the inhale back, opening up. And now I'm going to bend over so you can see, very wing-like. I'm not like a jet airplane. And then exhale forward and inhale back. Feel that on the other side. Just for contrast, as always, we don't try to make the left be the right, and we don't try to make the right be the left. As a matter of fact, we're not supposed to try anything. Very wise, very short individual once said, there is no try, there is only do. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. That's the movement on one side. That's the movement on the other side. We can go back to the first side. Let's do 6 repetitions. The transition happens at the 6th. We'll bring in the extended foot, step out to the other side. So starting with that exhale and inhale. 1, exhale, and inhale. I like this, especially for a day that has a focus like it does, because it gets the arms involved, it gets the legs involved, so we get a little bit of heat going on. That's about 4. I lied, let's do 9. 5. 6, I'm going to slow it down just for giggles. 7. 8. So on 9, as I spread the wings, I'm actually going to bring that foot in. Step out, exhale. 1. 2. 3. 4. 5. 6. 7. 8. 9. Turn. Hands float. We won't do the Shibashi close. We'll do our regular Water Tiger School close. Find that connection between the upper body and the lower body. I'm going to find my right foot. That's the one that stays grounded. The left foot is the one that moves. As I float up, out, away from my body with my arms and my hands, almost as if on top of a beach ball filled with helium. I'm going to settle my vertical alignment, crown point of the head, base of the pelvic bowl, ball of the foot. I'm going to draw the hands in. That draws the foot in. Should be the same amount of time bringing the hands in as it is to bring the foot in. Heel still in the air. I'm going to press the heel down. I'm lengthening here. And then sitting down into the lower body to cover the acupuncture point for the Xia Dan Tian with the palms of my hands. And there's the close. Also a little bit of full body movement, so everything is connected. I can also do that same sequence. Again, the time it takes for the arms to float up is the time it takes to get the crown point of the head over the base not the base of the pelvic bowl, over the ball of the right foot. The time it takes the hands to come in is the time it takes to bring the foot in. And this time I'm going to sit down in the body as I press down. So I stand up out of it to bring the hands to cover the acupuncture point for the Xia Dantian. It's more or less in this area between about where approximately where the belly button is to approximately where the pubic bone is, but much closer to the pubic bone than the belly button. And there you go. There's our warm-up. So pulse. What do we mean by pulse? It's something that we've always sort of made a part of something else that we've done. You'll notice in the intro below that there's a link to Water Tiger for Sachem, August 10th of 2020, which was originally a Facebook Live session, so that's the playlist of which it is a part. And it introduces stop and start form play. And the stop and start exercise is one that you come to the end of the posture. This is our Party in the Wild Horses made, by the way. And you hang out there for, say, a number of breaths. And then you move to the next posture in the sequence. And when you get to the end of posture, you hold. So it's a good check of structure, that sort of thing. Sometimes when we do a stop and start, I'll suggest, one of the things that you can do as you're hanging out there is just a little pulse into that end of posture. But we don't always do that when we do a stop and start. So we created an entirely different version of stop and start that's not called stop and start. It's called Tai Chi pulse play. So that's what we're going to introduce today. And it can be floor exercises. It can be form play. You could play with other, shall we say, photo-ish moments that aren't ends of postures. Depending upon how you play your transitions and your forms, there are certain moments that it might behoove you, there's a good word, behoove, to focus upon sort of as a single moment practice. There's a video out there. We don't have this one listed below. That's single moment practice. That can focus on transitional moments, but primarily we do this for ends of postures just to check that everything is where it's supposed to be. So let's start with our basic four stance and do what we would normally refer to as a Tai Chi walk first. So just a basic floor exercise. Any posture walks that you do, that sort of thing, that's what we mean by a floor exercise as opposed to a form. So again, shoulder width determined by where the heels are. Now our forward moving stance, bow stance, mountain climbing stance, our back foot is somewhere around a 45. Right, again, and notice that when I put that to 45, I turn on my heel, not the ball of my foot. If I turn on the ball of my foot, now my right heel is inside that space that is my shoulder width. So I want to be there. And again, around the 45, some people might say, hey, it has to be a 45. Or it has to be this angle, or it has to be that angle. We're all different. We're all made differently. My left foot, not only just because it's my left foot is different than my left foot has 3 screws in 4 pieces. There's a story to that. And I'm going to take my front foot and step it a little bit closer to the camera than where my right foot is. And my toes are forward, or they can be in. I just don't want to be in my finished four stance position and have my front toes pointing out away from my center line. Either the direction of my center line or in toward my center line. That's what I want. And about 70% of the weight on the front foot, about 30% of the weight on the back foot. You can go 60-40. You really don't want to go 59-41. And you could go to 80-20, so be a little bit more forward weighted. But you really don't want to go to 81-19. It's just too forward or too back in the two directions. And my hips are square. This is one of the reasons that we might do this is a pulse. So here I am, I'm doing a pulse without actually walking. That coming into that feeling that 70, 30, back heel down, back instep down, right? I'm not rolling. I don't know if you can see that roll of the foot up off the ground. I want to make sure the outside of my instep is down. I want to make sure my hips are going out to the sides, just like my shoulders are even with my hips and going out to the sides. And that's our first step if we were doing a Tai Chi walk exercise. To change, there are 5 things in our lineage. We don't do the twist step, which you could do and turn and fill. A twist step is turning on the heel of the front foot, the ball of the back foot, right? We do a weight exchange that is a shift backwards. So this is 2 of our 5 count. 1 is the step, 2 is the stance. 3, I'm going to rock back, let the ball of the foot come with me. Now 4 is kind of tricky because I want to keep my right knee pointed the same direction as my right toes to turn that foot out. So the quad, or the inner upper thigh, comes into contact with the pelvic bowl, opens up like the pages of a book. That's 4. 5 is coming into the next ready position. And then there's 1. And now this is my first right 4 stance that I'm going to pulse. 1 and 2 and 3. We'll just do 3 pulses and then rock back. This is 3 in the 5 count. 4, opening up the pages, the quad like the pages of a book, keeping that left knee pointed the same direction as my left toes out to around the 45. And 5. 1, 2, 2, 2. Rock back, turn out, step up. 1, 2, 2, 2. Now I'm going to do what we refer to as a casual close, which my hands are going to release from whatever they're doing. They're going to float up out in front of me. Notice how that float up is pulling in that back foot. In, heels in the air, heel down as the hands press down. There's the ubiquitous Laoshi Lawrence McElroy knee pop. I don't know if you heard that or not. Probably not. It wasn't very loud. And I have my casual close. Water Tiger, we like to close our various floor exercises, not only our forms or our forms to date, but when we do a floor exercise, we like to close. And some of the Qigong, etc., we close as well. So that's an idea of a floor exercise that could be done as a pulse. Again, and all those, those little notations in that first step, that the back instep is down, that the heel is down in the back foot. The outside of the back foot instep is down. Didn't talk about knee over or slightly beyond ankle. You don't want to pulse and push that knee out like that. That would be bad. Knee over ankle is safest. Knee over top of the foot is generally okay depending upon the health of your knee. But over the toes or beyond the toes in 4 stance, in the end of 4 stance, not a good idea. Tai Chi is very good for the knees. It's often recommended as adjunct therapy for people who have knee issues. It can actually reverse previous damage to the knees. Anecdotal evidence only, I don't think there's been a study of that particular aspect benefit. But if your footwork is wrong and you're doing Tai Chi and you came to Tai Chi with healthy knees, they won't be healthy for long. So our next example for our pulse will be just the beginning of the standardized 24 posture form. I really shouldn't say standardized, right? We don't use that anymore at Water Tiger School. It's sort of a default setting because for so many years I said standardized. But, we have World Tai Chi Day coming up in about a month. We'll have our annual instructors or facilitators demonstration where everyone who's facilitating, we have 9 facilitators from 8 different programs currently for our event. So at this time, during that, if everybody can stay and do the demonstration in the middle, we'll all be doing our own lineage's Tai Chi all at the same time. And there have been many times over the last 25 years, Water Tiger has been hosting an event that more than one person, one lineage has demonstrated their 24 at the same time. And you can look at two facilitators, and at times looks like they're doing exactly the same thing at exactly the same time. Other times it's like, what? Huh? So this will probably be a little bit different than your own lineages of the 24 posture form. I'll start with opening. Now, from opening to the first parting the wild horse's mane, it's just continuous, right? So keep that in mind. Open the way that you normally open. Play your postures the way you normally play your postures, even though we have this pulse version. Doesn't mean you have to play your 24 the way I'm playing my 24. Just take the lessons from those pulse moments and make sure that you're doing those. Or follow along as best you can if you don't know the 24. And I'm going to sort of deviate at white crane for a moment. So I'm going to get into white crane two different ways. Our way at Water Tiger School and a different way. Just because the different way is the way I think probably most of you might do. I'm going to start with my feet almost together. Not quite. One is somewhere inside of shoulder width. I'm going to drop the hand, settle the weight into the right foot. So crown point of the head, base of the pelvic bowl, ball of the right foot. And by the way, that settling, one, subtle, and two, should take the time it takes for the hands to release from covering the Shia Dantian to just sliding down. And then the time it takes to step my left foot to the ball of the foot at around my shoulder width, ideally at my shoulder width, is the time it takes my hands to separate. Up over the center of the feet, up over the top of the ball, in, heel starts to descend, down, heel descends. Up a second time. In a second time, ideally a weighted turn on that right foot. Coming in, forming the ball to form the step. And by the way, this is one of those transitional moments for us that you might want to pulse. We'll only do it this one time, which is when the ball is done forming, the heel should be down. And then turning into the posture. Let's parting wild horse's mane. There's one. Pulse, two. And notice it's very subtle, but the hands are forming that end of posture. Elbows are settling at that end of posture, at the end of the pulse, releasing, pivoting. And again, for us, forming the ball forms the step so that by the time the ball is there, the foot is there. No pulse in that transitional moment, but transition or pulse here. One, two, three. Notice my hand right toward the center of my chest, palm back, rounded, rock back, turn out. Forming the ball forms the step. This is our last parting the wild horse's mane. There's one. There's two. There's three. And from that, this foot for us stays grounded. I'm going to pivot here, forming the ball. No hold. What we call high press is here. You'll notice I'm kind of changing where my shoulder width is. So what I'm going to do for us, so we can maintain our little track here on the blue lines, I'm going to step over to this side. And then here's white crane. Boom. And that's the end of posture. Let me do that again so it's a little less clunky. You know, I sort of did that. That was like an audible. Maybe it would be better if I kept my shoulder width. Why don't I just do that and shift? Yeah, that was a bad decision, Lawrence. I'm just going to keep my feet where they are. So when I do my first brush knee, which will be our last posture, I'm not going to be on my blue lines. So there's 1, 2, 3. Now, a lot of times, if I call an audible on something, it's actually a good choice, but sometimes it's not. I press, and here's my white crane. Boom, boom. And notice I'm getting the hands, the arms into their finish at the same time the ball of that front foot turns down. And then coming back, coming across, when my left hand passes the left knee, it brings in that leg. Brush knee step and strike 1. Second pulse, 3. And my casual close. Boom. So now I'm going to go back to that third party in the wild horse's mane. I'm going to get into white crane differently, but you'll see more or less the same end of posture, but it's different. Here's pulse 1, pulse 2. This pulse bounces me back into white crane, into white crane, into white crane. So again, to show that difference, here's mine. I'm going to step back so my feet stay on camera throughout. Here's Water Tiger School's version, a little bit more complicated. That forming the ball over near the left railroad track, what we call high press, not a posture, and we just name the transition into white crane, into white crane, into white crane. Boom, boom, boom. Where we have the bounce back after the 3 pulses, where it's into this, it's into this, it's into this. One, 2, 3. And then again, a casual close. And there you go. So any of your forms, whatever the form is, you may make a choice if your form includes like the 24 cloud hands to just not bother and keep the cloud hands going, or you may, at that middle of that transition from one foot to the other, choose to sort of come into contact at around 12 or 6, depending upon what version your cloud hands are as well. So, play with that. Some postures, maybe you don't want to, for instance, especially if you're playing with a group of people who have some balance issues, that pulsing on, for instance, the kicks might be a bit tricky. But you can also, we've talked about this before as we've talked about training wheels. There's no harm, no foul if somebody has a balance issue, to still have kicking energy, but setting the heel down, setting the heel down, setting the heel down, but still having that kicking exercise energy, be it a ball of the foot or the heel of the foot. But be wise, be true, understand your ranges of motion, your strengths and your weaknesses. And if certain postures feel like, I really can't pulse this and have it be beneficial to me, then play through that particular posture. It's just a fun little exercise that sort of, I didn't talk about, with, for instance, our brush knee, most people do brush knee this way. We have that little cross that you can see for us, that both palms are settling, both wrists are settling, both palms are pressing or pushing. But this one is representing a blocking energy. This one is representing a striking energy. So I'll do it this way too, so you can see. But that allows you to sort of pulse at that end of posture, just to feel everything's in place. The crown point of the head's over the base of the pelvic bowl. If that's your vertical alignment, or whatever your vertical alignment is, whatever your structure is, you're just doing little slight movements in and out of that finished structure to just double check to make sure that everything's in place. So it's sort of a little way to explore single moment practice without just staying in that single moment. You have a little brief vacation single moment practice before you go to the next one. And that's what it means for Tai Chi pulse play. Floor exercises, forms, etc., whatever works for you, and do that. So I hope, as always, that you found this somewhat interesting, of help, perhaps, maybe something interesting to play with, maybe not. And as always, we like to think we police the comments here, but I'm not really sure with YouTube algorithms if we have that opportunity or not. However, we'd appreciate if you're going to criticize, make it constructive, be courteous. And we will post a link to this on our Facebook page. It's a little bit more free range there, but sort of the same thing. Don't, be kind, but be honest. And we'll go from there. So in 3 weeks, should be 3 weeks, so that's getting really close to the date for World Tai Chi Day. We'll still do our best to keep our every 3 week schedule. Something from Qigong. We have something in mind, but not sure if we want to announce it at this time. Probably shouldn't, in case we change our minds. But we've done stuff with Tai Chi where we've compared various approaches to different postures, like getting into White Crane, which was a part of today's video. We might do that with something from Qigong. That's kind of what the thinking is at this time. We'll see if we're able to do the research to allow that for that to happen. And that's about it. So thank you for your time and attention. Appreciate it. And take care. We'll catch you next time. Well, you'll catch me. I won't be able to see you because that's not the way cameras work.